Ahead and get us started here as
Yeah,
we
thank
still
you.
have a few more people rolling in, but it looks like we're right at 6 o'clock. So I just wanted to welcome everybody and thank you all for joining us tonight for this evening's webinar. My name is Jerome Betcher. I'm the Strategic Communication Specialist here at the College of Education and Human Development at George Mason University. We really appreciate you joining our webinar tonight, Transforming Learning Activities to Better Engage Students Online. Our presenters tonight will provide strategies and frameworks that hopefully will help you as teachers transform your learning activities to better engage your students in a virtual format. So especially right now, hopefully these will be very helpful for you. As a reminder, we are recording tonight's webinar and you will receive a link with the recorded version within the next couple of days. With that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Jered Borup, who is an associate professor. You've already met him here tonight in the academic co-coordinator of the Learning Technologies in Schools program here at CHD. Jered, I'll defer to you as far as how you want to handle questions that come up. If you guys want to, I can help moderate that towards the end. But with that being said, thank you guys again. And Jered, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Well, I know how busy everyone is, so it's a huge honor that you're willing to spend some of your time with us. Really excited to meet with you. We've got 206 people so far, and I have to say, one of my favorite comedians, he basically has a joke where he says, I don't talk to anyone all day, and then I talk to thousands of people all at once. And I kind of feel like that right now. So it's always a great opportunity to meet together with you here. Please be active in the chat. If something kind of resonates with you, let us know. If you want to share something, please share. So what's great about the chat is you don't have to wait for us to ask you to share something. Just go and type it in. That'd be fantastic. So as Jerome was saying, I've been at Mason for 7 years. Before that, I taught in Idaho, 9th grade social studies. Absolutely loved it. Got my PhD. When I got my PhD, I had no idea what blended learning was, but it really resonated with me. So I've been researching that and online learning since then. I co-edit an academic journal and things like that. So I'm very active in the research community, but what I love most is working with teachers. And I have the honor of working with Jacob and Chrissy, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Jacob, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. My name is Jacob Norat. I am a teacher in Fairfax County, and I teach at Franconia Elementary School. I teach art to grades K through 6. However, I've had the opportunity over the years to teach art all the way through high school level as well.
So hi, my name is Chrissy McLaughlin. I'm an advanced academics teacher for 6th grade, and I work in Fairfax County as well. I'm over at Lee's Corner Elementary School. So this is my 20th year in education, and I've taught everything from preschool through the beginning of high school. And I graduated from George Mason with my master's 2 years ago in the blended and online learning program that Jered has.
Yeah, so yeah. So we have a program. It's a master's program, Learning Technologies in Schools. It's had different names over the years, but it's a 30-credit master's program focused entirely on preparing teachers for the K-12 environment, for the online or blended learning environments. It's fully online or blended. You get a pick. If you want more information about the program, there's a bit.ly, and maybe Jerome or Chrissy could put that in the chat. Jen, any graduates or current students of the program here with us? I saw Jen. Okay. Okay, so this memes kind of get us through difficult times, right? This is my favorite meme. It came out pretty soon after the school closures happened, and it just really resonated with me. For years, I've been arguing, we should use technology to transform our teaching, and then all of a sudden, it happened all at once, and it really took me aback. It took everyone by surprise, and it was hard, right? This picture of this child sitting at the computer in a Zoom call crying. Not that students don't cry in person, we know that they do, But it was a struggle for a lot of students, a lot of teachers. On TikTok, a lot of teachers were kind of posting their thoughts, their experiences. One thing that was really hard is we tried to digitize what we've always done. And one way to do that is like we digitize our tests or we digitize our worksheets and things like that. And in order to do that, we were worried about cheating. So then we had surveillance coming in and monitoring students and things like that. Probably the best article I saw at the time was this Inside Higher Ed, where it says the best way to stop cheating in online courses is teach better or teach differently, right? It's not necessarily better, but teach differently, because we are teaching in a different environment and that changes what we should be doing. So we know that remote teaching requires different skills. And this is why it was so challenging when everyone switched to remote teaching and learning. It requires different skills. So you might be a fantastic in-person teacher. That does not mean it translates to the online environment. And so that has really stretched all of us as teachers. The metaphor I like, and Jacob didn't plan this, but he's got, I hope you notice his guitars in the background. So imagine Jacob played guitar for years and years and years. He's excellent at the guitar. But then all of a sudden, he's ready for a concert, and right before the concert, they say, "Oh, by the way, Jacob, I want you to play the cello." Everyone's waiting, everyone's ready. It has strings, you know, it looks kind of the same. You should be fine, right? Don't worry about it. You can do this. And then Jacob steps on stage, and he probably doesn't sound very good, right? We have to learn a lot to transfer from the guitar to the cello, just like we have to learn a lot from transferring from in-person to online. Have you ever gone down these like rabbit holes or rat holes with videos? I went down some with the cello, these people that would learn how to play the cello really quickly. And so they would post weekly videos. And what was amazing is that they learned really quickly how to play an instrument. I mean, they weren't great after a few weeks, but they could play something after a few weeks. And it was really impressive for me to kind of see this time lapse. And I think that if we took a time lapse of how we've developed as teachers throughout the past 8 months or 6 months, I think we'd be really impressed with ourselves. I think we all deserve a round of applause for what we're able to do. This was one video that I really liked. She was an expert at playing the cello, and then she played different instruments. So it was like $5,000 cello, almost $200,000 cello, and $1 million cello. And you could tell a difference, but in the end, it wasn't so much about the cello, it was more her skill, right? Playing the cello. And I love this comment, just really hit me. It said, you know, give me any cello and it'll make it sound like a $10 cello, right? So oftentimes we focus on the technology, like, oh, I just need to learn the technology and that's it. Well, no, it's more than the technology, it's the ability to use the technology well. So in this webinar, this is what we're going to focus on. This is not a webinar to teach you how to use Blackboard or Canvas or make screencasts or anything like that. We're going to talk about big picture things, focusing on teachers' ability to use technology well and provide some examples. There's 2 models that we're going to talk about today. As an academic, I am obliged to show you some models. So the first is a pick route model. We'll talk about that. And then the 4 E's, which is using technology to enable, extend, engage, and elevate. So the PIC model stands for students' experience. Is it passive, is it interactive, or is it creative? Passive, are they watching a video? Are they reading an article? Are they listening to a podcast? All of these things are good activities, but it is passive. It's kind of sitting and getting, you're absorbing information. Interactive is you can use programs that are interactive, like games or Imagine Learning or Dreambox and things like that. Or you can interact with the teacher, you can interact with peers. Oh, is it not fitting? Is everyone seeing my whole screen? Kimberly mentioned that it's not fitting. Okay. Sorry, I'm not sure why that's happening for you, Kimberly. Or you can use technology to create something. So instead of interacting, you're actually creating a new product. So students can create things. simple as just typing something can work. Or maybe they're creating a presentation, or maybe they're creating a video. There's lots of things for students to do. I want to emphasize that all of these are important activities. We don't want everything to be creative. We don't want everything to be interactive, and we certainly don't want everything to be passive, but all of them should be used at certain points of the learning process. Now, the RAP part of the PIC-RAP model stands for replaces, amplifies, and transforms. And that means, are you using technology to simply replace what you've always done? And that's what a lot of teachers did at the start of the school closures, is we tried to digitize everything that we were doing. And that worked sometimes, but not all the time. You can also use technology to amplify what you want to do, right? So it makes some changes, some benefits, but it's still pretty much the same activity. Or you can scratch that activity and do an entirely new activity, really transform what you're doing. So if you look at the PIC-RAP model, you have a matrix here and you can decide where things go. So for instance, passive and replaces, that's right now. Yes, some of you are interacting in the chat bar, and I love that Anna is trying to help Kimberly. I love that, you know, that type of thing is really great. But we're kind of digitizing what we would have done in person, right? Or we can do activities that is creative, but we're transforming what we would have done or what we could have done without technology. Here's an example. I taught social studies, right? We have history teachers here, yeah. So I had my students make maps, and imagine in an online environment, maybe I still have them hand draw a map, or I could have them take a picture, right? So now what am I doing? They're creating something, but they're just digitizing what we would have done in class. Or maybe I could have had them create a digital map or something like that. Or I could amplify that activity by using a map with clickable links, you know? So there's lots of tools that do that, where you can embed videos and things like that on the map. So that's one option. You can do it in Google Draw, for instance. Or maybe instead of a map, I'm gonna have them create a website, a travel website for extraterrestrials coming to visit Earth, right? So that is a very different thing. I'm still teaching the continents. I'm still teaching things about the continents, but now they're doing something new. They're doing something different. All of these are good. Again, sometimes when I introduce a PIC-RAP matrix, they say, oh, well, I'm just passive replacing, you know? Well, that's good. You know, that could be really good. There's good reasons for that. But if we're only staying at the PR level and not getting up to the creative and transformative levels, then that is a problem, right? So we want to make sure that we go all around the matrix. So let's talk about replacement. We have a long history in the educational community of just replacing what we've always done. So instead of a lecture, you know, in person, we go to Zoom. Or instead of Zoom, we use Blackboard Collaborator, we use Google Meet. Or instead of Blackboard, we use Schoology. Or instead of OneDrive, we use Google Drive, or Nearpod, Pear Deck, or Screencast-O-Matic, Loom, or Screencastify, or the list goes on. Or instead of Padlet, we use Flipgrid, or Jamboard, we use Google Drawing. And it goes on and on and on and on. Oftentimes, we jump to a new technology because it's new. And there certainly is good reasons for that. You know, there's a newness factor. It can improve some student engagement, but it can also improve efficiency, maybe costs. So for instance, Padlet started charging, which kind of made me want to pull my hair out. So then I jumped to Flipgrid because that's free. It doesn't do everything that Padlet did, but it does what I need it to do. So there's some reasons for that. Access is another reason, or the novelty factor is a good reason. But none of these reasons are going to impact learning. It's not going to help your students better learn the material, right? It's just digitizing or replacing previous practices. In order for us to really impact learning, we have to move over to the amplifies and the transforms areas. And we do that through the 4 E's. So that's kind of our key to transforming or amplifying learning. So we're going to go through each of the 4 E's really quickly. So one is enable. Will the technology allow students to do something that they couldn't do otherwise, right? So it goes beyond replacement, but it actually unlocks new types of activities that you couldn't do otherwise. Another one that we want to spend a little bit of time talking about is extending. So for instance, if you're in a Zoom call with students, they need you there, right? It's not really extending their learning time because they need you there. Or we can actually create asynchronous learning activities that they can work through at their own time or pace because they don't necessarily need you there in a Zoom call or physically present. So it extends their time beyond their time with the teacher, their learning time beyond their time with the teacher. So one way we do this is through videos. It's certainly not the only way, or perhaps even the best way, but there are lots of tools that lets you create videos, Screencast-O-Matic, Loom, Screencastify. If you want to put in the chat a tool that you use when you create videos for your students, Loom is great. And then they changed it to 6-minute limit, which kind of hit me right here. So, and Screencastify has a free limit as well for the time. So yeah, Snagit, great. WeVideo is really great. I know FCPS, a local school district here, just got WeVideo for the teachers, which I think is great. I'm going to turn the time over to Jacob because he created videos in a little different way, and it worked really well with his content. I think it'll work for yours as well in some instances.
All right, thank you, Dr. Borup. So when I was creating videos as an art teacher, I was really thinking of what I could do to help the kids really see and understand the concepts. And in this example, you're looking at gesture drawing where I'm trying to get the kids to understand the proportions of the figure. So in the video itself, not only do I draw it, but I try to show them how to measure out the figure to get a feeling for that component to it. And this was a little bit different too, because it's something that in person, we might actually be able to physically measure each other. So I had to think of different ways to portray that concept. And one of the things that I found really helpful was just figuring out a good setup to produce these videos and show my students. So you'll see in the image to the right there, I like to use a camera boom, with a webcam, and then I had an external microphone that helped me to just have a little bit better audio quality when I was sharing that information with my students.
What did this cost you, the setup?
So the boom arm is fairly inexpensive. If I recall, I got on Amazon for maybe $20, $25. Depending on what kind of microphones you're looking at, those range wildly, and of course the webcams too. But honestly, you could get some pretty decent webcams at a low price if you really search things out.
So Jacob inspired me, and I took a stack of books with my cell phone, and I just kind of propped it on the top of the stack of books, and then I had a piece of paper and I could draw. So if you want to save the $35 or whatever it costs for the boom, you can use a stack of books just to try it out. But I think that there is something about, you know, that kind of old school drawing on paper. It's really engaging, or writing on paper, working out math problems and things like that is a great way, and it can be a really engaging way to extend students' learning.
There's a question in the chat about how to use, like, somebody was saying they wanted to read books from home, and I could show real quick. My husband just built me, so I use my tripod for my camera that I have. You just hold it up, but he built me this base that just sits on the tripod, and I put my document camera here. So I just move this around my room, and I read to my kids every day. I just sit in a chair in the corner of my room, and I just pick up my tripod and move my camera. And so that's just a really easy, it was free since my husband did it, but I think it looked pretty easy to put together.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, just being creative on what you create, or how you create instructions or tutorials or instructional videos. There's a million different ways of doing it. Jacob, do you want to share your screen and go through your website?
Certainly.
So one thing that we do in the program is over half the credits are actually developing materials that you would use with your students. So there's a huge overlap. And over the summer, Jacob created this website, which was really fantastic to really extend students' learning, where you could go through this without him there.
All right. So yeah, a lot of my plan was to think of, if this was being presented strictly asynchronously, could the kids still access all the material? But then of course, if I was presenting synchronously, it's still an extremely valuable tool and it has a little bit of that flexibility. I did want to kind of focus in on a particular grade level, but you can see here at the basic welcome page, where I use a lot of video that I create to go ahead and give that idea of my personality to be able to show through and interact with the students. At the beginning of each unit, I tried to make sure that that was incorporated within it. So in our 3rd and 4th grade unit, you can see this idea where I would be introducing the unit here through video. And then I've kind of broken it down into individual lessons where the students can access and work essentially what would be on a weekly basis. And then I tried to make sure the students had a good understanding of what materials they would use and what the final product would look like. So when I was looking through this, and as mentioned in the previous video, measurements was important. So I tried to find samples that might stick out to them. And I also wanted to create samples and give them information that, again, reflects some of my personality and allows me to show through within the work. It's not something that you have to do, but I really like to incorporate my own creations into the websites and the materials I build for my students. Moving forward, we kind of had a look at this video, and it was kind of just bringing together some more of those ideas so that my students would be able to essentially read, go, oh, what is gesture? Take a look at examples, see a video to help them understand what it is, see an example of what the artwork I'm looking for, and also reference artists who use the idea of movement or gesture within their work. And this was tying into, and I will, actually a dancer was this idea that I had in part because the students are so interested in dancing. And I did continue with a particular theme with the artwork, but I wanted to get them to think of dancing and movement for their gesture because it's so intertwined. And again, I thought to try to inspire them and tie in some of my family history within this. So I tried to share some dances that inspired me. Again, give them an idea of what their sketches and preparatory work would look like so that it's very easy to see. One thing that we did do was be able to share images and things through Flipgrid here as well. And this really tied into, again, a little bit more video tutorials, helping them understand how to build the base, how to build the sculpture, create the work. And one of my favorite ideas that I really liked about this and was excited to work with the kids is to have them then reply to me through video and create some interesting things where they could have their foil figure actually do a little dance for me to kind of show it off in lieu of a traditional critique. So I kind of changed what a traditional art critique might look like and turned it into this little dance-off video that the kids would have the ability to be able to go ahead and respond to their peers through Flipgrid and kind of vote on their favorite dancer.
That's great, thank you. So some people said that takes a lot of time, right? I think Jacob would agree. That takes a lot of time, but it's also something that you could keep using. And the goal is not to replace Jacob, right? I mean, he is the teacher, but it allows him to do things differently. And it takes a lot of stress off of students where they can know that they can go and access that material when they need. I did want to mention something about read alouds that was mentioned in the chat. Yes, you need to consider copyright. Now, some publishers suspended that during the pandemic, and I think they still have some through the rest of the year. But you can't make a read aloud video and share it with the world, right? But you can create some videos and share with small groups. Okay, so I'm gonna, Chrissy, do you want to share your screen this time, Drive, and then I'll go through some of these others. What Is anyone else creating a website or a Google site or Wixie or something? What about Google Classroom? Who's using Google Classroom? So if we go down to the next slide. Google Classroom, this is another former student in the program, Corey. He teaches at Fairfax County Public Schools as well. He created just this amazing Google Classroom, and you'll notice he started each lesson with a video of him kind of giving an orientation of what they should do. He brought in other videos. He created these infographics. He created hyperdocs that were really fantastic, and had all the directions, all the work laid out step by step for students to go through. So many of you are already using Classroom, or you're using Canvas or things like that. But with some work, you can actually create some activities for students to go through at their own pace. And it allows you to kind of spend more of your time working with smaller groups of students, and especially as we go into this simultaneous teaching. What are we calling it? That's not the word. Concurrent teaching. I think more and more having these types of materials available is going to be even more important, right? Okay, so if we go to the next slide, the next E is engagement. Engagement is a term that we use frequently to mean everything, but really there's three types of engagement. Behavioral engagement, are they physically doing something? Emotional engagement, are they connecting with the activities? And cognitive engagement, are they learning from it, right? And so we want to use technology in ways that actually engages students' hands, their hearts, and their minds. In the next slide, I think people felt, I cannot connect with students online. It's different. You can connect with students online. Some online teachers say that they can connect with some students even better online than in person. But that's not the case for all students, right? It can be really difficult to connect with some students. And so I think sometimes we really want to have students' hearts in mind when we're presenting. So this is another one of our graduates. She posted on Twitter that she noticed some Zoom fatigue. So they took a mind break, and then she came back as Wonder Woman, right? The picture on the top is my daughter. Her kindergarten teacher, her second grade teacher had a s'mores activity. They're writing directions and things like that. And so they had a camp out, a virtual camp out. Chrissy, I love the videos that she makes. You see her dog Ludo there. She makes videos from the grocery store. She uses filters. All of these things are just ways to kind of engage students, to have fun. We want to have fun with learning. Oftentimes when we're on Zoom or online, we forget to bring the joy, and we want to have that joy in our teaching. The next slide. So the question for you, how are you connecting with your students? What have you been doing? So Spirit Week, I think that's great. Some people are sharing that. Thank you, Megan. So share your other ideas in the chat as we kind of go through lunch bunch. All those things those unstructured times are so important. Joke of the day, yes. We need more of that. My daughter just told me what type of snake wears a hard hat? A boa contractor. Get it? Huh? So she learned that from her friends, right? So those types of moments are really great. We want to do that. And I apologize for the joke. Yeah.
My kids right now, one of the favorite things that my class likes doing is we decided to celebrate birthdays. We would normally do it in the classroom. So in the morning when the kids come in for the first 10 minutes, and so today was somebody's birthday, I have a happy birthday song playing and we celebrate them in the chat. And we had a birthday committee in my class and they made Google Slides for each kid's birthday in the class. So we present those. And on their own, they decided to create a Google form to collect like all of what's your favorite food and what's your favorite activity. So each slide is personalized to each of the kids in the class. So they feel really special.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. In fact, we're talking about doing a future webinar. Hopefully Jerome will let us on maintaining relationships and things like that. So, okay, the next slide. So we have to ask ourselves, it's great to have creative activities where students are creating things. But if we're not connecting with them emotionally or cognitively and they're just doing things, on the next slide we see that that is just busy work, right? We want to cut out the busy work. Just because they're active doesn't mean it's a good activity, but we do want to connect with them emotionally and cognitively. That should be our goal. The last E is elevated, and what this means is we want to take our learning objectives and elevate them to include the portrait of the graduate skills or the 21st century skills. Oftentimes they're called the 4 C's, the communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity skills, right? So that should be our goal. In addition to learning the material or developing those skills, those content related skills, we want them to elevate what we do to include these types of skills. Sometimes they're called soft skills, which I hate, like, because it makes it feel like it's not as important. These are critical skills, and we really want to include them. And technology allows us to do it in some ways better than without technology. Okay, so we're going to go through some examples. So Chrissy's going to share some examples. I'm going to share some examples of projects. I think with PD, these types of events, we want to see examples, show examples. And why don't you, in the next slide, here's a question. How are you doing it, right? What are some projects that you're doing with your students? If you wouldn't mind sharing some of that in the chat as we go, we'd really appreciate that. We're always looking for good ideas too, and share them out. Okay, the next slide. Here's just an example, an imaginary example. I taught history. I used to have my students write essays a lot and teaching essays. So that's a good assessment. But how can we amplify or transform that? So in the next slide, we see, okay, amplify. One way you could do it is have them use a blog like EduBlog. So instead of having them write an essay, it's still kind of an essay, but now it's easier to share. They can adapt it, they can personalize it a little bit, right? So it's amplifying, it's not transforming. In the next slide, maybe we want them to collaborate on a Google document or something like that. And so now we're amplifying, or maybe that can even transform it depending on how students are using that feature in Google Drive. But how can we transform it, right? So let's get rid of the essay, or maybe the essay is a part of it, but they're actually going to create something new, something different. And in the next slide, we can see maybe we want them to create a video. These student-made videos are great. They still have to do a lot of the writing, a lot of the prep, but now they can make mini documentaries. And I think that's really great. As a history teacher, I'm blown away by what students can create with video. So let's go to the next slide. This is one from Fairfax County Public Schools. Two teachers, they collaborated together and they called it the Immigration Project. And so what they ended up doing is they worked with students, they created interview questions, then students interviewed someone who immigrated to the United States, and to tell their stories, they made a mini video. And then they had all these push pins on the map, and you click on the push pin and a video would pop up from the person that immigrated from that area. And it just blew me away. So we talk about the 4 E's: enabling, yes; extended, yes; engaging, yes; elevated, for sure, right? So this is a great example that really hits on all of those things.
So I'm going to exit out of presentation mode because I'm going to share a couple of videos with you guys. This is a project that my students did. So this was back in the spring, as soon as we transitioned to distance learning. The students were, we were excited. We wanted to get going and start and do some fun projects, but I didn't really quite know how to do it. So we thought this was one of the first things that the class did. So that we were talking about, there were these videos going around, we were talking about social distancing. It was a new term. And so we saw this, funny video of this guy wearing pool noodles. And then there was this video, I believe, that I saw from Dr. Borup about somebody wearing a ring to keep people 6 feet away. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have my class create a social distancing apparatus of their own? And then it was also a headline in the news at the time, Dr. Fauci saying, you know, will the handshake be a thing of the past? So my assignment to the kids were that they had to do two things. They were going to create a social distancing apparatus, and then they were going to give us another way to shake hands. What would be an alternative to that? So the students really could do the project however they wanted. I had a Flipgrid set up so they could record their responses there. They could create a presentation, and it was optional at the time. So what a group of kids wound up doing, which I was so excited about, is they created this video, and they did it through social distancing. So I had a group of 3 girls, and they collaborated online, and then they all decided what part of the project they were going to do. So this video that they wound up turning in, it was the very first part of it was each one of them recorded their own video, and they designed and laid out their social distancing apparatus. And then they each then created their own video presenting their idea of the new handshake. And then all those videos were tied together to create one video that they turned in. And it was really cool. So I'm going to show you a couple of clips from it. Girls, they used the music as background. They created, they used to use her iPads to draw pictures. So I'm going to show you the very first about the
on her at all. And let's see your other side of your hands. Yeah, she didn't get a lot of her. If she washes it off, she'll be safe. So let's compare the two and see which one was more germ spreading.
So she had her sisters involved in helping her, and they shook hands.
The handshake or the fist bump? Which spreads more germs? Let's see the handshake first. Well, that is the part of mud. Let's see the fist bump. Let's hold them up together. Wow.
So this is another family. They introduced the concept of the hello bow. So it was her and her sisters. She had them also help out explaining the new idea. And then the last family.
Hi, I'm Molly. Hi, I'm Henry. We're going to be using this lotion to demonstrate germs. So let's say
they wound up doing a foot
Henry and I can do a foot touch. But make sure to do it lightly so you don't get hurt.
They thought it was really fun because not only did they engage together, they were able to include their family. And I was really so excited by seeing this, since this was one of the first things that they had done, realizing that through distance learning, we weren't going to have to just do synchronous lessons, and the kids were still going to be able to be creative and have fun. So I think that this opened a door for me, realizing that I can continue to challenge students in a fun, creative way. So this is another project that the students had done. So we do Reading Above. It is a program where basically all the students in my class, they read their own book, whatever book is challenging to them. So then I have one-on-one conversations with them. I'll listen to them read, and I give them prompting questions where they are responding to the question within the book that they're reading. And at the very end of their book, they all have to present their book in some kind of way. So they can create a book trailer, they could do a poster, really anything that they want to do, Google slide deck, it was completely up to them. So this is a video of a student, she read a book, Echo, and then so she really is an amazing actress. And so her skills definitely were shining through this video that she created, and she had her mom help her out. I'm going to show you some of this video.
So how did you think that music was coming from?
Honestly, I thought it was the harmonica calling me to it. There was something about that harmonica that was just magical. I would not be completely surprised if it had a voice of its own.
Great. So why do you think your house was inspected? And why did they do it so cruelly?
So then she changed characters.
How did you feel when Frankie was almost taken away from you?
I could not bear to see him taking away from me. Even when Meriwether brought us the idea, I got goosebumps. You see, me and Frankie, we stick together.
Well, that is...
And this is the last character that she
When you
decided
found
to do.
out that you went to Lincoln Annex and not Lincoln, Maine. How did you feel?
Well, I felt cheated. Like when you play a game at the carnival and don't win. I mean, I know I was not the first person to feel upset about how things work. I mean, people
So she had a really fun time pulling that together, and the mom as well. The mom said to me, she's always looking for ways to engage with her child. So it was really fun for her to be able to be a part of a project. And she was really proud and excited to share this with the class. And it was something I find that when I open up the door to my students and I allow them creativity and ways to shine and express themselves, they really blow me out of the water, and they show me things that I never would have thought to ask them to do in the first place. So it's always really rewarding to see. So this is another example in math class. Every time we start a new unit, we focus on vocabulary, and I explain to the kids that knowing the vocabulary is just as important as knowing the concepts. So they have to do an overarching project throughout the unit. So just pick some of the vocabulary words from throughout the unit, and I give them a whole bunch of options of activities they could do. They could create poetry, make a video, they could make a Quizlet. They have really a whole bunch of different options that they choose from. So this student in particular, he is very quiet and he doesn't speak up a lot in class. He's pretty shy, but he's so creative. So this was one of the first things that he did for me, and it was phenomenal, and it was really cool to see. And it got him, everybody in the class was so excited to see this work, and they were asking him how he did it. So he created a Google slide deck, and he doesn't speak at all in the video. And he shows you basically what a function is. And he made this animation all by himself, and this slide deck was over about like 1,000 slides. And he created this character whose dog runs away, and he finds this function machine. The dog was in the function machine, this in and out machine that we talk about. When you put numbers in, something different comes out. The dog puts his bone in, and then he tells us a little bit of background about functions, about what the rule of the machine is, what a function is, some of the vocabulary of what you would call input and output, our X and our Y. And then it shows what happens to the bone after it follows the function. I love the sound because he doesn't talk, but that was his way of like adding a sound effect to it. So he walks us through and he shows us that 8 bones come out. So the dog throws the guy's wallet in, and the guy gets a little nervous about it. He's sad because his wallet's gone. Then it created all of this money. So it was just funny at the end because it shows the dog and the person rich. So it was so fun. And I show this video every year to my students, and he is now in high school. And when the kids, we went to go go to the middle school orientation, the kids spot him, they're like, hey, that's the function video kid. So he loves, and he's so honored that it's just something that everybody has enjoyed seeing. And I think it's helped give him confidence. And this is actually another one of his projects.
Chrissy, can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Someone brought up, what about parental support? Those students that don't have parental support, and I would just argue that is always an issue. It's even a bigger issue when you're not providing students with choice, right? If, for instance, if you made all of your students have a parent interview them and make that video, that would have been a huge problem. But that's not what Chrissy was doing. That was something that they came up with based on their situation, their circumstances. And I think that the way Chrissy builds in choice and flexibility really honors that that not all students have the same level of support and parental involvement.
Thank you. And some of these projects were pre-COVID, and some of them are currently. And so some of these projects, kids, like the project that I just showed you, and this one was done 100% in school. And I think what I found was really cool was once everybody saw what the student could do, they were asking him, hey, can you teach me? Can you show me? And it started to be, that was the trend in my classroom that year, was everybody doing these really neat animations, and they were all learning from each other. So I think that sometimes projects are done at home, but a lot of the times they were done in our school environment. I mean, now obviously they are home, but the kids have so much fun really kind of picking what fits their personality and what would be a good way to share their knowledge, so everybody winds up doing something a little bit different. So this is the same student. You can tell almost by the artwork, but we were doing a research project, and he wanted to do a presentation on pollution and global warming. So he created a book, and his book, he said, make sure you watch it in presentation mode because it's only actually a couple of slides long. And he wrote his book, and all of his illustrations he created on his own. And so it was really beautiful. And what he could do with a Google slide deck, I didn't even realize like you could do. So he just put so much effort. I didn't teach him. If you look at my Google slide decks, like they're basic. There's no animation at all. So the fact that he did all of this on his own and researched stuff and played around was really neat. And I actually had one of my students that year mentor one of another kiddo that I mentored in 2nd grade, and he wound up teaching him how to animate his book because they saw it was really cool. So here's another example. So this was back to the math vocabulary. The students were in another unit, and we were doing transformations. So this student created on her own. She just used her, I think it was her cell phone, and she used iMovie, and she put this together. We're doing the slides school year, their skills in creating videos it grew, and they got more confident in it. And when she shared this video with me and I saw it, I remember I shared it with my principal, I shared it with some other teachers in the building. And when they saw her walking in the halls, they're like, hey, you're the transformationator. And she just had also, again, a really shy girl. And she doesn't speak up too much in class, but she was so proud and excited, that everybody loved her work. So here's another example. This was a little bit more low tech. The kids, basically, they were learning about different explorers. And this was something that my class recently did. They worked together in a breakout room, and they had to take the information they learned about the different explorers, and then they had to pretend as if the explorer lived today and had an iPhone, what would be some apps that explorer would have on his iPhone. So since they researched Robert LaSalle, they had a French flag, and then they said because he wanted to start a colony, they just created this colony starter app. He felt like ships were really important because it helped take you to different parts of the world. And then he also realized fur trading was something that was going to help him connect with the natives and learn their language. So they created an app for these things, highlighting the facts that they knew about Robert LaSalle. Oops. So I think that one's you, Jered.
You're on mute, Jered.
Yeah, I heard that's a quote of 2020. So I need that T-shirt. And I'll just say, not all of students' projects are going to be the transformator, right? I mean, I'm sure that Chrissy gets all levels of projects, and so that's important to remember as well. So when we talk about interactive activities, so you can do a lot in Zoom. You guys have been using the chat, which I love. That's like the best part of this whole thing. We're not doing breakout rooms, but you can certainly do breakout rooms. You can have polls. You can do like interactive slide decks and things like that, right? So you can make that synchronous time really interactive, or it can be kind of passive, right? It kind of depends on what you need and at the time and what you're able to do. But we can also improve our discussions by moving some of them to the asynchronous or kind of on-demand environment by using Flipgrid or VoiceThread or Padlet. And one thing that we find is that those in-person introverts can become extroverts. on some of these platforms, right? If given time to reflect, and oftentimes even using text, some students do really great in text and they don't do well in video. So just giving them options and choice can be really important, and you'll be amazed at how many voices will show up in the asynchronous discussion that aren't there in the synchronous discussion. And then Chrissy, this is, I'll just tell you, this is the best part. This is hands down the coolest kid. Well, they're all cool kids, but this is like the coolest video where he just used Flipgrid and he just used a pause button. That's it, right? Chrissy, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, he's a student who has a huge personality, and it came through so much more even in his projects that he turned into me. So again, it was Flipgrid. I had never used Flipgrid in a way other than hit the record button, speak to the camera, turn it off, look at your video, done. The very first Flipgrid he did, which isn't this one, he took his Flipgrid and he walked around with the camera up here and he recorded himself. And I was like, what are you doing? And then he hit pause and he changed perspective. So that was his first one. And then his next one got a little bit more creative. And then this was another one. So this was again, math vocabulary. And he was just sharing his knowledge about what quadrilaterals are. So this is how he decided to share that.
Where's the quadrilaterals? Got them right here. Quadrilaterals. You're joking, right? What? I got your quadrilaterals, dude. These are not quadrilaterals. These are triangles. Aren't they the same thing? No, this is a triangle. This is a quadrilateral. Okay, I got your quadrilateral. This is a quadrilateral. Look, this is the one you gave me. This is the one I brought. They're the same thing. Oops. Listen. Quadrilateral is a shape with 4 sides and it's closed. It also has 4 angles. Jeez. Okay, fine. I got scissors. Let me give you your quadrilateral. Look, boom, 4 sides, 4 angles, and it's closed. Happy? Technically, since it does have 4 sides and 4 angles and it is closed, that also counts as a quadrilateral. That all quadrilaterals are rectangles or squares. Gee, that guy did not know anything about shapes. He took my wallet.
I told you. It's just so perfect. But again, that's just him doing the play and pause button. I've seen kids do like barrel rolls before their comments, right? It's just a way for them to show off a little bit. And show their personality in new ways. And this is really transformative. I think we can all agree with that. He couldn't do that in an in-person environment or in a Zoom call or anything like that. And so I think when we give them choice, some need extra support in that and some really soar. And so I think that's really important, and recognizing their home environment. Some said that you're in a rural area with limited internet access. Well, in those cases, maybe taking a photo of an offline activity and uploading it is the best thing to do, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't still provide them choice and things like that, right? The next slide is another way to amplify or transform our interactions. And this is a VoiceThread activity. Students, these were younger students, and they wrote letters as if they were from living in a Japanese internment camp. And then what was really amazing was the teacher invited survivors from those camps to listen to students' comments and then post a reply. So we'll just watch a little bit of one.
Amanda, this is Reiko talking. And you know what? When you were talking about lack of privacy, you know what I remembered? And I was only a little girl, about 8 years old. It was so embarrassing to have to go to the toilet in front of everybody. There was no doors to close. There were no walls on either side of the toilets. It was just toilet after toilet. And it's embarrassing to have to go in front of somebody, but then you have to watch other people go. But you know what some of those ladies did? They got very clever. Some ladies got paper bags and they cut out holes for their eyes so that people couldn't see who it was that was sitting on that toilet. And then some ladies did something more. They got cardboard boxes and they sort of opened them up and then they wrapped it around them like skirts, so they could have some privacy while they sat on the toilet. And then Japanese culture stepped in here. Some of the ladies start painting and coloring very nice designs on their little skirts on these boxes. And then it became competitive to see who could do the best and the most beautiful boxes to put around their toilets. Wasn't that an interesting thing? Well, I thought you might like to hear that. So that was my story to you. And thank you very much for being on this project. Bye.
I get chills every time I hear that. And I've listened to that dozens of times, and I get chills every single time, because I just imagine, first of all, that is just amazing. Like, I'd never heard that. I grew up near the Topaz internment camp in Utah, and I'd never heard a story like that. That just is so powerful to be able to learn that. But then to have someone watch what you do and make that comment is amazing. The other thing that I'll just say is this again is at another stratosphere of maybe what we can start with. But inviting guest speakers has never been easier, right? To invite someone to jump on a Zoom call, it's never been easier to have guest speakers. And so many people are at home looking for things to do. They'd be very happy to do that. So tap into your PTA, tap into your network, and see if you can't invite people to come in. For instance, I taught 9th grade history, like I said, and those reenactors, what are they called? That they make their armor, starts with an M. I'm blanking on it. Anyway, I used to have them come to my classroom and show their armor and things like that, but they couldn't bring everything, right? But in a Zoom call, you could bring everything. Like, you could bring your sword and your battle axe and kind of show how you make things. You could take them into your workroom and things like that. And so you can actually have new experiences that you couldn't do in person. Okay, so just to end, our challenge to you is try something new. Whatever it is. I've been reading a book and they say start small so that you can start strong, right? And so I think that start doing something small is good, you know, and maybe it's replacing, or maybe it's amplifying and it's not transforming yet. But as you go, you'll keep learning new skills, and you're going to be amazed at what you develop and what you learn so quickly. The next thing I want to just say is Chrissy did a great job of sharing student examples. We couldn't have done that without the students and parents' permission. So thank you to those students and parents for giving that permission for us to share that out. And then just to end, thank you for coming. In the next slide, we know how busy you are. So there is a link there to the Learning Technologies in Schools program if you're interested in learning more about that. Like I said, more than half the program is actually spending time creating things for your students. It's very, very applicable, especially now during this time and beyond COVID, right? We want to take what we've learned and actually apply it in the classroom. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. And then on the next slide, we're going to be sending a recording for this to everyone that registered, but also some free resources. I've got an online mixtape. I have a free online book for you, and a visual guide to creating videos, including what not to do, with some gifts. So look for that email, and please share out the material with teachers in your network as well. So, and a huge thank you for Jacob and Chrissy for presenting as well. I think we can all agree that's always a highlight, seeing what they're doing. So thank you so much. And again, thank you for attending.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending tonight's webinar. Again, we really appreciate all three of our panelists for presenting and offering just the amazing tips and methods that you can help connect with your students. And like Jered said, we will be sending out the recording within a couple of days, so look for that in your email, and feel free to put it in the chat. Check out the CEHD Cares website on the College of Education and Human Development webpage. We have more resources there for teachers and parents alike. So thank you all again, and appreciate you guys being here tonight. Take care.
Thank you.